What's up, boys? Soulsborne Fanatic here. We are doing a Bloodborne tier list today because I need views. This is going to be the most objective list possible and wrong in no shape or form. I forgot to mention, putting this in post, I'm going to be doing chalice dungeon bosses too because I was crazy enough to do all the chalice dungeons bosses, and some of them are pretty wacky. Some of them are pretty cool. A lot of it feels like it wasn't tested and isn't in the main game for a reason. If you've played the chalice dungeons, you know what I'm talking about. So let's just get it started. The One Reborn. This is kind of like the Tower Knight from Demon Souls, except cool. This boss isn't very good. I think I'd put the One Reborn probably in D tier. It's not that great of a boss fight. I don't know, I'd probably put it in C tier. Because it's a gimmick fight, but like, at least the gimmick is somewhat cool. I don't know, because like, you can get one shot killed by the stuff that the One Reborn spews out, because it just sits there. It's not even really a boss. The boss is killing the things up on top that are healing them. It has the coolest name ever, the One Reborn, and it looks absolutely horrifying, and the lore behind it is, of course, nuts and mad, just like Bloodborne, the game is. I don't know, it depends how I feel. Cause it's a C tier boss and a D tier boss. It's like either a C minus or a D plus. I think I'll go with C tier though, because there's much worse bosses. The One Reborn. Witches of Hemlick, for example. This boss sucks. It's a gimmick fight where you think you're beating up because she's invisible, and you don't know where she is because she's invisible, and you got these shadow things that kind of look like the shadow things from Elden Ring. That's like a dungeon boss. Someone could leave the name in the comment section, I'd appreciate it. But this boss is directly tied to your insight. The more insight you have, the more spawn. But so you can go in there with 0 insight and none of them spawn, which makes this laughably easy boss fight even easier. And as soon as you kill one, you find out that there's actually 2 of them, because they thought more witches, more grannies would make the fight more engaging or fun or something. I don't know. This is really just a throwaway boss. It's an optional, completely optional. One of the worst bosses in Bloodborne base game, I'd say. Moving on to the second great one that you fight, Rom the Vacuous Spider. This guy, he's kind of trash, not gonna lie. Looks really cool and all. The fight is kind of annoying. He squirms around and he has like 30 spiders around him that jump at you, and you try to hit him on the head. You have to run around and hit him on the side. It's just kind of an annoying fight. I would say this is probably the weakest Great One fight in the game. I don't know where to put it though. C or D. It's not that bad, but it's just not very good either. I think I'd put it in C tier as well. I think it's better than the One Reborn though. The One Reborn is just pretty bad. Up next is Martyr Logarius. This guy, much. I died like 30 times to him. This boss is really hard until you figure out how, like the secret to it. This boss is completely optional zone, Cainhar's Castle. I really like Cainhar's Castle. I think that's a cool zone. But this guy is extremely aggressive. He has AoE moves. He is pretty relentless. He makes veteran Soul players, people who've played these games, die quite a few times. I've seen it happen. I don't think it's really that hard of a boss. It's just that his aggression and not knowing, like, he puts this thing down as soon as he enters his second phase, to where it does like a whole bunch of AoE stuff, and you're supposed to destroy it. I didn't know that, so that kept on messing me up, and then he killed me, and it was bad. You can parry him, as you can for most bosses, but I never could really get the parry off efficiently. But when you do, you can make the boss pretty easy. I would say this is probably a B tier boss. He's pretty cool. Very hard. That's the hardest boss in the main game for me, honestly, because he killed me so much. I forgot to mention that the run back is absolutely awful. The run back for this guy, you have to run like an Olympic level dash fucking 10 times. I don't know which, it reminds me of Lost Easelift with the Beta Chaos. I don't know which one's worse or which one takes longer, but I'd love to time it one day, sometime. But the run back is so bad. Like, it sucks. It is awful. Up next is Mergo's Witners. No one really talks about this boss, from my experience. It's always about Father G, Orphan of Kos, Ludwig, Lady Maria, maybe even Gehrman, but no one really talks about because it's the third final boss. Then you fight Gehrman, then you would go and fight Midlord if you choose that ending. But this boss is really, really cool. I really like Mergo's Lightners. It's kind of easy though, kind of really easy, because the way you go about fighting this boss is you want to get behind it. You don't ever want to stand in front of Mergo's Witners because it has like 20 scythes that it can just fuck you up with, and if you get behind it and stay behind it, it's literally just stand there and attack. It's pretty funny how easy it is. Part way through the second phase, it Mergo's turns everything black, and well, not completely black, but makes everything darker, and then she like clones herself. You can literally just casually walk in a circle and avoid every attack, or if you're daring enough, you can even attack her while she's doing this. It's pretty goofy. I don't know if I would put it quite at A tier though, because it's pretty easy. I don't know. I think A tier is fair. Some people might disagree, but I really like Mergo's Witners when I first fought it. I think it's a really cool and underrated boss fight. The lore behind it is super cool too. I really like the lore. Bloodborne is just such a cool lore game. Moving on to a even more of a joke of a boss, Celestial Emissary is laughably bad. Um, I dying to this is probably worse than dying to Pinwheel. I'd be embarrassed. I'd be hard pressed to find anyone who likes Celestial Emissary. That boss is a joke, man. An absolute joke. Moving on to Ebrietas. Optional boss fight to where you have to go through a window, some weird Lovecraftian bullshit. That's essentially all that Bloodborne is, but that has to do with how Lovecraftian, how it is by H.P. Lovecraft. You go through a window and you meet Lovecraftian horror beyond human comprehension, and this boss is horrifying. The lore is the college students found this thing, I believe, in the basement, and they tried to extract the blood from it, and that's how everything really happened in Bloodborne. People dislike this boss. They quite dislike this boss because one move that this boss does, and I beat this boss first try, so I can't really relate to that. I thought it was really cool, but it was another case of, oh yeah, you gotta stand behind it. Then it's basically just spam R1. It's pretty funny. Ebrietas, I think it's a good boss fight, but the move where it shoots out a giant AoE that can one-shot you, I find that kind of annoying. So I'd put that probably in B tier. I think that's a very fair placement. Yharnam Pthumeriam Queen. It's a chalice dungeon boss fight. You see the NPC outside of Mergo's Witners. The lore is that her child was a great one, and Mergo's Witners was the nurse for her child, which was a great one. It's fucking whack. The boss fight it's cool, I guess. Yeah, it's one of the boss fights where you don't want to use the summon because it makes it harder. She can clone herself 3 times during the fight, and then you gotta fight you gotta fight 3 of them at once. It's pretty interesting moves. She does blood stuff like Maria. It's kind of annoying, really. I'd put this boss in C tier. I think it's probably a high C tier boss. It's something you really have to go out of your way to fight. It's the final boss of the Chalice Dungeons. It's not really worth it. I mean, if you want to get the achievement, go ahead. But it's alright. Up next is everyone's favorite boss, Ludwig the Holy Blade. So, I know it, you know it, we all know it. S tier. Easily. How could you not put Ludwig at S tier? Ludwig was was a hunter before he was a monster, from the church, and he's one of the part of the Old Hunters DLC. He is the first boss of the DLC, I believe. You see Laurence, you can see Laurence, but you can't fight him just yet. Ludwig is pretty difficult, I'd say. Some people had a rather easy time with him. The entire fight just boils down to listening for the unholy screeches that he does, and then you gotta dodge it. He has one move where he jumps up in the air, and that's kind of hard to dodge for me. But nobody really cares about the first phase. It's all about the second phase transition. Absolutely slaps. One of the best musical compositions I have ever heard in my life, and that is no exaggeration. Ludwig is one of the best bosses that From Software has ever made, and the lore behind it is just really fucking awesome. I love Ludwig. You can talk to him afterwards too, after you kill him, to get his Knight Greatsword. Pretty funny. But yeah, that's about it for Ludwig. Moving on to Da Baby, Orphan of Kos, which is the weird love child of a Great One and of Gehrman, the first hunter. Don't ask for proof. I know that happened. Okay, that's what happened. That's totally what happened. This boss is the hardest boss in Bloodborne, easily. Easily the hardest boss. I died to this boss an ungodly amount of times. This boss kicked my ass so much. I don't think there's a single person who had an easy time with Orphan. Orphan is really fucking hard, and it's a really cool boss and all. The moves are cool, but I just find a lot of its moves pretty annoying, especially the one where it throws like its the stuff in its ball sack hat, and it gets really annoying. I got really close to killing it over and over and over, and as soon as it, like at its last bit of health, he just killed me every time, and it was really frustrating. The run back isn't too bad, but it's long enough to where I feel it's unnecessarily long. But Orphan, I would say it's A tier, and I might get some flack for this, but I don't think it's worthy of an S tier because I didn't have that good of an experience with it. And not just because I died, but because I genuinely just didn't find the boss to be very fun. I can recognize it being as an A tier though, because of the significance behind it and how cool it was, but I would say this is probably a low A tier for me. I think Orphan is pretty overrated. You can parry cheese him if you really want to. I couldn't really ever get the parries. You could, I just don't really like Orphan that much. Moving on to a boss that I absolutely love and is pretty broken, Lady Maria. This boss is absolutely broken. Completely broken. It has broken hitboxes. It's a good boss though nonetheless. The significance behind this boss is it's a really climactic moment in Bloodborne, in the Old Hunters DLC, where you confront her in the Clocktower and you think she's dead, but she is, but she isn't. Bloodborne. The fight has 3 phases. The music is amazing. It is restless. It really fits the character. Lady Maria is probably my favorite boss in Bloodborne, and I couldn't put her. I put Ludwig higher, but only because I think his boss fight isn't broken like Maria's. Because you can just look up the broken hitboxes for Maria. It's pretty frustrating. I beat her first try, though. I don't know. Maybe I will put her S tier, even with the broken mechanics of the boss fight. I might get some flack for this too. I think Maria is my favorite boss fight, and I think objectively the coolest. It's just so awesome. She grabs your hand, and she's like 8 feet tall, and it's just terrifying. Lady Maria uses the blood magic shit, and she resented it after the horrors that they committed, the atrocity that they committed at the, what was it called? The Hemlick, the beach area, the area that falls right after her. Gehrman, Maria, and a whole bunch of other hunters went and killed a lot of people because they found a great one, and they started experimenting on them on shit. It's really fucked up, but she threw her weapons away and resented the blood that she now uses. It's so cool. I love Lady Maria's boss fight. It's my favorite in the entire series, probably. Um, I got a thing for tall women. Moving on. Watchdogs of the Old Lord. Uh, Chalice Dungeon boss fight, throwaway. Not very good. I'd put it at D tier. It's just an annoying boss fight. Chalice dungeons are known for just not being very good, and this is an occurrence of them. Moving on to one of the laziest DLC bosses, Laurence the First Vicar. This boss has you thinking that it's just a reskinned Cleric Beast, when no, you actually go and fight this motherfucker, and he loses half of his body, and now he's crawling around in the second phase, and the music for him is amazing. I didn't think Laurence was that significant in the grand scheme of things of the Bloodborne lore, but he is single-handedly responsible for everything that happened. He is the reason they used the blood, and he spread it around in all the places that you see in Bloodborne, like Old Yharnam, where they had all these quarantines and they tried to stop the spread. Fear the old blood. The risk that he took was calculated, but he was really bad at math. I would say this boss fight is B tier, and that might get some flack, but I think Cleric Beast's moveset is not good. I mean, not that bad. I think it's decent. I think it's probably a little bit better than Cleric Beast. Moving on to the first boss of the game, considering if you don't go fight Cleric Beast. Father G, GASOCOIN. This guy stopped a lot of people from playing Bloodborne because they couldn't figure out how to use their gun to parry him. 99% of the people who played Bloodborne used a little piano thing. I don't really know what it was. The thing that makes him like freak out because it's like he makes him remember and shit. Makes the boss even more easy. The boss is a little bit harder if you don't use that. The second phase I think is pretty easy. The first phase I think is really easy. I'd say this boss is, it's a hunter boss fight. I'd probably put it like right there, B tier. I think he's decent hunter boss fight. I really like the hunter boss fights in the game. I think I don't know which one I really prefer at the end, but the hunter boss fights are really cool, as in it feels like more grounded. The ungodly Lovecraftian horrors are really cool because it gives you this, they just have a certain presence. And up next is the first great one that you fight, Amygdala. I really like this boss fight, but only because I used Ludwig's sword. And if I didn't use that sword, you're not going to have a really good time on this boss fight, because you have to hit melon head. If you don't, you're going to do like 1% damage that you would do. And for that, which builds in Bloodborne aren't, there's not very much build variety in Bloodborne. It's not really that much in depth compared to other Souls games. Although it's not necessarily a negative, it's just a different way for a different style. I think Amygdala is probably B tier as well. I don't know though. Depends how I feel. It might be C tier, might be B tier. Probably like a B minus. I think he's alright boss. And now the worst boss in the DLC, Living Failures. This boss sucks. Terrible. I don't care what anyone says, this boss is terrible. It is absolute trash. I'll make a whole new tier. There we go. Wow, we still have a whole lot of end bosses left. Cleric Beast, first optional boss of the game in Central Yharnam. I really love Central Yharnam. I think Cleric Beast is probably a high C tier boss. I think it's really fucking cool. Just the cutscene, not really cutscene. He just jumps over the tower and it's just like, that's the most Bloodborne. It immediately lets you know you're in it. You're just in it. You think it's all about these giant beast, wild, crazy beast animals, but you don't really notice that Bloodborne is something entirely else until Amygdala. Gehrman, the first hunter, the final boss of the game, considering you don't fight Moonlord. He is an S tier boss fight easily. I'd say he's probably a little worse than Ludwig. I beat him first try. I beat him first try. It feels like the AI sometimes can just bug out, and I don't understand how that necessarily happens, but Gehrman was laughably easy for me. I beat him first try. I don't have footage of it, sadly, but I swear to you, I beat him first try, and it was ridiculously easy. I just kept on parrying him, and he wasn't even like using his crazy flash step moves. He just kept on. I just kept on rocking him right into it. But considering that doesn't happen, this is the true final boss, I would say. You got Mid Presence, which he's really the final boss, final boss. Gehrman feels more of a finale, of a proper finale, because he's a lot harder, and there's a lot more nuance to his boss fight. Gehrman is a really good boss fight. Moving on to Pthumeriam Descent. I hate this guy. This guy's annoying. He's ridiculously aggressive. You can parry him and stuff, but I could never get that off because he's just so damn aggressive. Another Chalice dungeon boss that I really dislike. I actually hate this guy. He's just a weird vampire guy that chills in the Chalice dungeon. This guy almost made me not want to do the Chalice dungeons anymore. Keeper of the Old Lords. So I think this dungeon boss fight, and I actually don't recognize this one. It's been a while, but I can't really speak on this one. I don't really remember this one all too well. I just put it in C tier for C tier's sake. Vicar Amelia. Boss that you see a little further into the game. It's really cool boss fight. You use fire and it makes the fight really easy. The whole cutscene where she grabs the amulet and transforms into this, really cool. I really like this boss fight. I put it at a high B tier. Vicar Amelia is a really cool boss. The moveset is crazy. It really feels extremely Bloodborne. Vicar Amelia. Up next is the boss that you need to enter the Chalice dungeons, the Bloodstarved Beast. Majority of people who have fought in the Bloodstarved Beast have used the blood stuff to throw it in the corner and then just beat the shit out of the Bloodstarved Beast. And it makes the fight literally easy. But try and not do that and fight it normally. And try and deal with that poison that he can inflict. It is a lot harder when you don't do that. I think Bloodstarved Beast is just kind of a weird gimmick fight. I'd put him at C tier. Not bad, not that great. Undead Giant. So, this is another Chalice dungeon boss fight. I don't recognize this one either. Let's put it at C tier for C tier's sake. Oh god. Oh god. Oh, this ain't a boss, man. This is just a battle of endurance. Everyone who's played Bloodborne remembers MICOLASHHHHH. God, it is so fucking bad. I despise MICOLASHHHH. It is atrocious. I would give him a new tier behind Living Failures, because at least Living Failures has really good music. MICOLASHHHH is objectively the worst boss fight in the game. I fucking hate MICOLASHHHH. It is so fucking bad. It is terrible. You chase him around, and you wouldn't know where to chase him towards. So it's just a game of running around in a circle over and over and over and over. It's just fucking miserable. It is awful. The only reason I am so harsh on it is because I can just imagine like a first-time player, like when I first played Bloodborne, and I made it to this fucking boss, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't look up any guides. This is an example of just looking up a guide, man. God, it is so fucking bad. I hate MICOLASHHHH. Terrible boss. I wouldn't even call it a boss. It's fucking shit. So the final boss of the game, Moon Presence, he is not very hard. He's laughably easy. Even on New Game Plus, he's still really easy. He has one move in his arsenal. It's where he lowers your health down to 1, but he's stunned for like 10 seconds. So you can just like use the rally mechanic to get all your health back. It's pretty funny. I really like Moon Presence and all, even though it's not that hard. I think it's a cool boss. I don't know if I'd put it at A tier though. Hmm. I'll put it at A tier. I think Moon Presence is worthy of an A tier boss, just because Moon Presence was the one who was controlling everything, and I think the design of it is just so damn cool. And you gotta eat the forbidden noodles to fight this guy, 3 of them, because you become a great one after you eat 3 of them. I think he's a really cool boss fight. His moveset is cool. It really just the cosmic horror of Bloodborne really is just top notch. So, an optional boss fight with Darkbeast Paarl. This boss is stupid. It does this electrical discharge move where you have to perfectly iframe it. It's annoying. If you just use a fire on your sword, it makes the boss fight pretty easy. I'd say it's probably D tier. And I'm gonna put these Chalice dungeon boss fights in D tier as well. Shadow of Yharnam. So this is a boss fight in the Forbidden Woods. It's a trio boss fight. It's a skill check, to be sure. It's pretty cool. You gotta learn how to multitask, and it feels like this boss feels like it's 3 of them for a reason. It feels befitting. These turn into regular enemies later in the game, but you just gotta learn to deal with multiple enemies all at once. It's an interesting boss fight. I'd put it at a low B tier, very low B tier. Some people probably hate this boss fight. I think it's cool because it's 3 different types of enemies. One that does long range, one does close, one does medium. Really unique boss fight. So finally, down to the final 2. Oh, and you can't even read this one. Beast Possessed Soul. Another Chalice dungeon boss fight. There's quite a lot of those. This one's probably D tier. Merciless Watchers. So this is just 3 regular mob enemies that you see in the Chalice dungeons. Low D tier. And yeah, that's my list. Tell me what you guys think. If you wonder if I made anyone more upset with me putting Orphan at A or Moon Presence at A. I think this is pretty objective. I don't really see how you could disagree with this. A lot of the bosses in Bloodborne are D tier or B tier. You get the select few gems, but other than that, yeah, that's about it. Have a nice rest of you guys' day.